Well, good evening and welcome into a Monday edition of the PressProsMagazine.com Monday Huddle Show. I'm Bruce Hooley here with Sonny Folks. Glad to have you along as we discuss what happened in the MAC over the weekend with a mammoth showdown of the top-ranked team in Division 6 and Division 7, Versailles and Marion Local, and we'll talk about Central Ohio, and we'll talk about a little bit on Ohio State, and we'll handle all your questions and comments and anything else you'd like to chat about. You can join us and send us a message on Facebook or on our live stream program here. Welcome in. And I have a new look. And I think probably most of you know why I have a new look. And I just want to let you all know I appreciate all your support and help and prayers, and looking forward to getting out to a game again soon. But it'll probably be a while because I can't drive for a few months. And with that, welcome in, Lyle Sonny Folks.
It's been a stressful week for a lot of us. A lot of you at the head of the list, and so it does us all good to hear your voice again, and the enthusiasm and the sarcasm and everything that is Bruce. So you're right. It was a big weekend over the week that we just got through. And by the way, let me do a little business here before we talk about football, because the Monday Night Huddle Show is brought to you in part, and a big part of that, by Skynet Rural Internet here in Miami County, headquartered in downtown Piqua. I'm sitting there right now. If you're living out in the country and you have crappy Wi-Fi internet service like I used to have, call them, especially if you're in Miami, Shelby, Mercer, Auglaize, Dark County, anywhere within their reach. They can help you. Give them a call at 773-0998. That's Skynet Rural Internet in downtown Piqua, and they will help you come out if you're trying to find better internet. If you want to stream TV and you can't, if you want to work from home, you got kids that are trying to do homework, they can make it happen better for you. So call and give Mike and Craig Grissom a call, and they will take care of you the way they took care of me. They made it work. So best testimonial I can give for anybody. If they can make it work for me, they can make it work for you.
So I wonder if they would have any use for me now that my head is probably reflecting whatever waves they're projecting out into the rural countryside of Western Ohio, if I'd have any utility for them now with my new look.
Well, the only thing I can say about that is when I had braces as a teenager, I was always disappointed that I could not get WOWO. I always thought that would be like an antenna, and I would be able to get whoa and listen to the Fort Wayne comments. That didn't work. I don't think you have much chance with your idea either. So
no,
let's just go on and talk.
The one thing I will say that has changed for me is that I now am much more comfortable wearing glasses than I used to be wearing contacts. It doesn't hurt to wear contacts, but for some reason, the oddity of this procedure of having a brain tumor and having it taken out and waiting to get a diagnosis on what it is that reading glasses used to, bridge that gap between your far away vision and my near vision. And I don't need reading glasses with contacts anymore, but I don't see as well with contacts reading as I do with glasses. So if people are wondering why I'm wearing glasses, that's why.
It never crossed my mind. Let's go. Let's talk.
Personal concern for me, I know.
Let's talk football.
All right. Well, I listened to the Marion Versailles game on our friends Tiger Country. Shout out to Scott Ward and his great crew.
They do a great job.
And everything about that night came through the radio and came through your account and photographs of the game. And we have seen that kind of game in the MAC many times before. And in fact, we may see that kind of game in the MAC again this year. But I have a piece that I think we're getting ready to publish that will pick up on some of the themes that you published today about what people really saw when they watched that football game on Friday night.
From my own personal observation, that game turned out exactly as I said it would. In fact, on the Friday night picks last Friday, I said I and 95% of the rest of Ohio would pick Marion local in this game simply because they've won 13 state titles. They never reload or even retool. They just readjust some people, move some people around, welcome a couple of JV players in, and they don't miss a beat. So I'm not surprised, and I said that they would win by a touchdown and probably less. And the fact of the matter is those two teams are so well matched. I was, of course, going Saturday and got back yesterday and didn't get into the emails for the weekend until last night. And a number of people from Northeast Ohio. That's where Danville is up there. You know, they're very good in Division 7 this year. Kirtland is not in Division 7; they're in 6. So Kirtland would be on a crash course with Versailles. Danville is one of the teams in 7 that would maybe be on a crash course with Marion local. A number of people from up there said, how good are the two teams? How likely are those two to be in Canton come the first week end of December?
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you that if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I would say both of them. Because anybody can beat anybody when you get to the state semifinal game. I'm not going to say that either one of these teams are a lock cinch. But I'll tell you why I think both of them are a prohibitive favorite in my mind to get there. One is that Marion is not intimidated by anyone. They played a very good Wapakoneta team in opening night when everybody was green and trying to figure out what the snap count was. Came down from 2 scores in 5 minutes left to play, executed perfectly an onside kick, which they rarely ever do in high school football, and found a way to win that football game. Typical Marion. They've done nothing except get better. Marion has always been a run-dominated team. I think they can throw the ball occasionally when they have the quarterback, and somebody like that Welker kid that played for them years ago that was, I think, dropped 1 pass in 4 years. When they have those kind of players, they can utilize them and win football games. But typically, they're going to have a strong running game. They're going to be strong between tackle to tackle. They're going to move people out of the way, and they're going to shorten the game. They're going to do what good teams do in bad weather. They don't turn the ball over. They're just very sound and solid. This year, they can throw the ball. Justin Knopf, their junior quarterback, does a great job of throwing the ball. They got a couple of kids in Pullman and Vic Holscher that can go out 6'2", 6'3", long, lanky kids that can run, catch the ball. Their defense is a work in progress, probably because Versailles showed the other night that they could throw the ball. And, those two teams are mirror images of each other in the fact that they're going to go out there and compete. Doesn't matter if it's district, doesn't matter if it's region, doesn't matter if it's state semifinal. I don't think either one of them are going to be intimidated. So if you're going to play them, if you are on a crash course with either Versailles or Marion local, be ready to execute and come up with every cliche that's ever been written about football. Don't turn it over. The team that makes the fewest mistakes. The kicking game the other night, as it turned out, probably cost Versailles a chance because they had a 32-yard field goal in the second quarter that was pretty much right down the middle. He hit it hard enough to make it from 45 and hit the upright, hooked it a little bit. And then, of course, they scored the tying touchdown with 2 minutes left to go, what would have been the tying touchdown, and probably tried too hard not to miss the extra point and did miss the extra point. So that was the difference in the game. From Versailles' point of view, they've got great team speed. They're so well coached. They've got a very confident leader at quarterback in Michael Osborne. They've got a couple of kids that run the ball hard. Garrett, number 9, their feature back, runs the ball so hard. And, they're just very well coached. They remind you a lot of the 2021 team, although they're not as big physically. So, again, I could talk for 10 minutes about compare and compress these two teams, but I already did. So, I think these two teams are a very good cinch to make significant runs toward Canton.
Yeah, and we'll be all over it if they in fact do that. And they both have, do they not both have? Yes, showdowns with Coldwater coming up. And Coldwater is an intriguing team to me because they don't knock you over with their stats, but they're beating everybody bad. And they beat Bellefontaine pretty handily. And that's no small accomplishment given the fall they're all over Tavian St. Clair, although London took a chunk out of his reputation on Friday night. And, you know, we will see again a packed MAC house and the values and demands placed on kids and the pressures that that brings out. And I will tell you what I anticipate happening at some point the rest of the year is that we will be writing Joel Garrett's name in a very different context because I know how the Versailles staff coaches that team, as Tim Goodwin coaches his team at Marion, as Chip coaches his team, as assorted volleyball coaches and basketball coaches and other coaches and other sports coach their teams throughout our area. And it's their continual prioritization of the things that you have to do to win
Yeah.
on a daily basis, not the things that you do schematically or trickerization wise or whatever to win, but the values you build into your program that tell me that we'll see a much different rendering of a consequential football game for the Versailles Tigers in which Joel Garrett has a big role later on this season.
I think what you just said was, and we've heard this cliche about this is coach speak, that you got to, certain teams just know how to win. Well, they don't learn and they don't know how to win unless you give them the tools. These two teams, seriously, are so well prepared, so well coached. Ryan Jones and, of course, Tim Goodwin and that staff of his. They give their kids the tools to win with. And, of course, when you win big, you get a lot of kids on the field. When you win consistently, you get 6 extra weeks of practice at the end of the year in a playoff to prepare for that state championship game, as Marion Local has done for 13 out of now 16 times, because they've been in the championship game 16 times for the last 21, 22 years. So they've been there a lot, and they have the tools. They've got the experience. They're not intimidated. They don't worry about anybody they meet. They just go out, they take the tools, and they execute to the best of their ability. And it's like both of those coaches have told me at one time or another over the last 2 or 3 years since Ryan has been at Versailles, you go out, you take your best shot, you're prepared to win, and maybe you win, maybe you don't, but they're gonna be prepared to win.
Yes, sir. So let's talk about some of the games we have coming up this week. In the MAC, Coldwater is 6-0, and they play host to Delphus St. John's this week. St. John's a little bit of a struggle here lately. They had a nice start to the season, but I would imagine Chip and the Cavs will get to 7-0 there. Marion has a breather. They're at Fort Recovery, and Fort's having a tough year. They're winless. Versailles 5-1. Got to pay attention. They're at Anna. Anna's 3-3 team. That's a team you've talked very favorably about, Sonny, but I would think Versailles will come back with a new determination. And then New Bremen, which is battling and doing what, now that New Bremen is a program, not a team, and Chris Schmidt's done a great job there, 2 titles in the last 3 years. They are clearly not as talented as they've been in the past, but they are adhering to all those values we just talked about and all those investments and things that win. And they go on the road to St. Henry, 3-3 at St. Henry. Brad Luthman needs a win at St. Henry in the worst way. I'm not sure he'll get it, but those are some of the MAC games that we have. And then in the MVL, we have a couple monster games. We have Sydney 4-2 at Tip 4-2, and we got Troy 5-1, which outlasted Piqua last week. Troy going on the road to play Xenia 4-2. Thoughts on maybe Sydney and Tip or Troy and Xenia?
Well, 2 things about that particular game. I think Sydney has impressed me from time to time this year, just for the sake of their athleticism. They've got kids that can run and make plays. I do think with the coaching change that it has taken a little bit of time to get their feet on the ground. So I think they are, as long as they're healthy, they're a program that's going to get better week by week. Tip surprised me the other week. That was the one game we missed on the Friday night picks. I thought they would build on the Troy win, build on the Pickle win, continue to put things together, if you will, and went down and just had an off night against Vandalia Butler, which, by the way, all of a sudden, they're winning football games down there for the new coach. So I think Tip is probably a team that's going to rebound. I think they're going to. Is that game at Sydney?
That game is at Tip.
That game's at Tip. I think the Tip will come out and have as you just said, have a refocus on things and come out and play better than they did last Friday night because they had their opportunities.
Well, normally they had their opportunities. When you run the ball the way Tip ran the ball on Friday night, you win the football game.
Yes, you do.
And that what's surprising to me is that they ran the football the way they did, and I don't know, something untoward must have happened in the middle of third quarter, early fourth quarter, because they got 2 scores down, and that's a tough way to live. They got a defensive touchdown, but they just, it sounded to me just like ran out of time.
Yeah. So, but the other games that nobody's paying any attention to now, suddenly, Milton Union's 4-2 and playing better every week. They came from behind the other night, a surprising Miami East that was up on them, and they had to come from behind to beat Miami East at 4-2. They're playing very well. When I saw Lehman 3 weeks ago, I said this team makes too many mistakes. They shoot themselves in the foot too much. But they've got Donovan O'Leary, a quarterback who can throw it 50 yards. They've got people who can go catch it. And when you can do that and stretch the defense, you've got a chance. So they've won a couple in a row. They're a team that I think is going to win a couple of games in the playoffs, such as Milton Union. And there are some other teams around. You mentioned Anna a while ago. I think Anna's a talented team. They got a quarterback that can make
all year. I keep waiting for them to deliver on your praise of them.
Well, but their losses are to Versailles, Brookville, and to Coldwater, and that's 3 pretty good teams to say we're 3-3 against. So,
well, to your point about Milton, the Brett Pierce's team has won 3 in a row, and they're going to win. They're going to win 5 in a row because they got Covington and Bethel, who both struggle, and then they're heading toward here we go again, an end of season showdown with Riverside. They're both Riverside and Milton now are both 3-0. Of course, Milton's got to deal with Northridge, and Northridge is 2-4. They're not as good as they have been, but you got to pay attention when you're paying Northridge because they can make you pay if you're not. But Milton's got to be thinking, hey man, we can win a league championship here. We can defend our league championship.
Yep, they can. They have a very good shot at doing it. And again, I tell this to people, and some people don't like it sometimes when you say, but I think overall, across Ohio, and certainly in our area here in West Central Ohio, there's a lot of young kids playing this year. There's a lot of teams that are probably a year or so away from being what they have been over the last 3, 4, 5 years. But I think they're going to get there. And you got some teams that just simply, Milton's one of them. They had 60 kids last year. They got 40 kids this year. So you got some teams that are in retool mode. The cycle has hurt some people in terms of just quantity of athletes. But hey, look, when you got Brett Pearson, you got Chip Otten, and you got Goodwin, and you got Bill Neeson, you got coaches like that, you're going to get a good again and better quickly.
Yep, absolutely right. All right, here in Central Ohio, we've got some really good teams. Minster fans, and Minster hung on and toughed out a game. Is Brogan Steffi out for the year?
Brogan Steffi's out for the year. I thought that I was told in the game that I saw him get injured that it was a bruised shoulder 2 weeks ago, and it turned out to be a broken arm. So he is out for the year and probably the first, 3 or 4 weeks of basketball as well. So their quarterback there who stepped in and played at the end last week in a 7-2 win over St. Henry was James Niemeyer. And if that name is familiar, there have been many good athletes by the name of Niemeyer at Minster. He's just the latest of the group. But, that's another good football team at 5-1. They're exciting because they can make plays through the air, and they can certainly make plays on the ground.
Well, speaking of 5-1 teams that can make plays through the air, one of them is the Olentangy Braves in the OCC. They are 5-1. They feature Ethan Grunkenmeyer, who is the heir apparent to Drew Aller as the quarterback at Penn State. Aller probably has another year there at Penn State at least. I think he could benefit from 2, but he's got 1 more year, of course, and he's out of Mentor, Ohio. And so Grunkenmeyer out of Olentangy is committed to Penn State and will, at the very least, have at least a redshirt year behind, or at least a whatever they call it now anymore. Nobody redshirts at Penn State. So Grunkenmeyer can get it done, but they are coming off their first loss of the year. They're upset by Olentangy Berlin on Friday night, and I saw Berlin on opening night lose to Hilliard Bradley, and I didn't believe in Hilliard Bradley really as a team that had I thought they might be a 8-3 team. They're 6-0. Ranked in the top 10 in Ohio. So we will have Bradley playing host, 6-0 Bradley playing host to Davidson, which was 4-0 and ranked in the top 10, has lost 2 in a row. We'll have Davidson at Bradley on Friday night. Our Steve Blackledge will have that. And then we will also have Thomas Worthington, which is also, I believe, 5-1, taking on Olentangy, and we'll have that one covered for you out of Central Ohio. I mentioned Minster and Brogan Steffi because I intended to mention that for all you Minster fans, if you're wondering how Garen Stokes is doing, they are 5-1, and they play at Olentangy Orange on Friday night. And Garen Stokes and Kaufman won 2 weeks ago on, I believe it was a 50-some yard walk-off field goal. So he's got quite a kicker there at Kaufman, and he is using him to his advantage.
Yeah. A lot of good teams right now to watch. And when I say good, I don't mean prohibitive teams. I mean there are teams that have talent that suddenly, just like we talked about through the first 5 weeks of the season, are growing in the game. They're learning a little bit more about how to win. And you're talking about some coaches that certainly give those kids the tools. And you can say all you want about cliches and learning how to win, but you can't do it without going out on Friday night and playing. And you're seeing some teams now that are 4-2 and 5-1. You mentioned Milton. You mentioned Dublin Kaufman. I certainly think Tip's one of them. I certainly think Vandalia Butler. I have not been a believer in them, but I think they've won 3 in a row now, and suddenly you got to kind of take them seriously. And Sydney, again, a team that's athletic and is beginning to get their footing on Friday night. They're beginning to feel good about themselves, feel confident about themselves, and probably feel pretty good about themselves like the Ohio State Buckeyes do this week.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tremendous coaching job by Ryan Day to get the other coach to only play 10 guys down on a goal line twice in a row. Tremendous job. And I really feel, I got to tell you, I didn't think I could possibly watch too much football. But after being in a hospital bed and a lazy boy for the last 2 weeks and watching every game and trying to kill time and get a little bit of sleep in between if I can, I was just footballed out on Friday night. And so I just was keeping track of that game on Twitter, and I'm just stunned that I was reliably misinformed for hours and hours and hours and hours on Friday night. What a horrible, terrible, awful, in need of immediate summarious firing as soon as the game ends coach Ryan Day is. And in the last minute, he manages to induce Marcus Freeman to play 10 guys on the goal line twice. That is some next level comeback coaching by Ryan Day.
That is tongue in cheek. That is Hall of Fame tongue in cheek.
Is it? Is it? I honestly don't know how you can want to coach for a program where you've lost only 6 games in 5 years and people treat you like you are an idiot. I do not know how you summon any desire to coach for that fan base.
Well, I said this in the column that's on the website today. You and I were talking the other day about people who think that Ohio State is, and I've had this notion forever, for decades, since I went to school there, that a lot of people think that Ohio State, that are claim to be Ohio State fans, are in that same category as Alabama and an LSU and some of these schools that are the perennial 1, 2, 3, 4, the top 5 in college football. And to me, Ohio State has always been so much more than that. as a medical school, as a research school, as a school of business. You never ever ever hear of University of Alabama and their business school
Are
or
they trying to
their
cure cancer at the James
cancer
Cancer
research.
Hospital at
Or
Alabama? No.
you just don't hear that at Alabama. You hear about Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And I've said, kind of tongue in cheek for years, if my life's ever on the line, I'm on the operating table. The last thing I want to see is look up and see Terrell Pryor wearing scrubs. That's how I think about Ohio State. And I think Woody Hayes, when he was coaching there in Ohio, that's the first thing he said about Ohio State. Yeah, we want to win. We love our football. It's part of the culture of Ohio. But Ohio State University means so much more to the people of Ohio than the 10 football games we play in the fall. So, you go back and you think about a guy that's only lost 5 games. And yes, it's been to Clemson, it's been to Alabama, it's been to Georgia, it's been to Michigan twice, in 5 years.
That's who you lose to, Sonny. You lose to good teams.
Yeah, and tell me who in the United States of America wouldn't want that kind of success rate. And yet in Ohio, as you just say, there's guys with, a laptop and a tank top sitting in the basement with a 6-pack of PBR, are sitting there pushing this narrative out on Twitter. And, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Nor, and I saw this today, I heard this today on the radio, you got to beat that team. Somebody's talking about today they should have beat Notre Dame 35-14. Come on, man. 35-14. I sat there on the sideline and watched. Notre Dame's a good football team. Their offensive line is outstanding. Their pursuit on defense is outstanding.
My NFL people tell me they got the best pair of tackles in college football.
They're really good.
An NFL guy this week, and he's like, watch their tackles, man. They're legit. So here's my thing. Do you want Alabama's quarterback problems? Or do you want let's play this 5-star. Oh, no, maybe we'll play the other 5-star. Do you want, how many 5-star wide receivers would you like to have? Or would you like to be some of these schools around the country that are trying to find one guy who can catch a pass? Like, it's just, we started this show tonight, and there'll be a piece on the magazine tomorrow probably about how much we prioritize the values that go into winning. And the values that I see extolled by the Ohio State fan base on a night like Notre Dame are not the values that go into winning. They are they're everything I loathe in this world. Entitlement, I'm owed it. It's just no appreciation for what people do on your behalf. I find it to be very difficult to feel good about being an alumni on nights like that.
Well, I was glad for Kyle McCord's sake. I thought Kyle McCord showed hugely on Saturday night, particularly in that last 65 yards. And Ryan Day said, he was as good as you could possibly ask somebody to be. He came up big for us. He was cool. He made the throws. He didn't throw the ball into coverage. He protected the ball. But, somebody just last week, or maybe it was the week before, was saying, how did we let Quinn Ewers get away? He just beat Alabama. Kyle McCord struggled against Indiana. And that's exactly what you're talking about. People who are entitled. And Quinn Ewers will have his day. They all do, because everybody plays somebody on a day where they either want it worse than you, they're prepared better than you, or they have been undervalued, and they say, we're going to show everybody, including you.
Yeah, and I'll also say, this has been a defense of Ryan Day, and I've been around Ryan. I find Ryan to be a guy who cares about the right things in his program. He cares about his people. He doesn't just care about winning. But also, it's hard to exist in that culture and not be poisoned by it, because I got bad news for you, Ryan Day. Just because you made 3/4 of a yard against 10 guys does not mean you're a physical team. And your disparagement of Lou Holtz is also a demonstration of a value that I hate in this world, which is the desire to push others down so you can stand taller. Lou Holtz is an old man. You think Lou Holtz is going to pick Ohio State against Notre Dame? Like, what did you expect Lou Holtz to say? That he thinks, I got news for you, Ryan Day. Until the last play of the game, everybody in the country thought Notre Dame was more physical than you. And because you made a half a yard against 10 guys on defense, and not by a lot, doesn't mean you're a physical team. And it doesn't give you license to go after a Hall of Fame coach in Lou Holtz, who has done way more than you've done. That may not always be the case. You're picking on an 80-some-year-old guy to stand taller. Like, I didn't like that at all.
Well, I think also people, when they talk about physical nature of football, I think they confuse physicality with personality. And I've said this for a long time, since especially the last 2 years against Michigan. I don't think that team has the running personality that Lou Holtz talked about in his interview the other day when he coached with Woody. Back then, at 3 yards and a cloud of dust, it was literally Normandy. When they ran the ball, it was the beaches of Normandy that there was just absolutely no excuse for not getting 3, 4, 5 yards in the first down. That was the mentality. They spewed snot and blood and whatever it took to move somebody out of the way. I don't think football is played that way by and large by anybody in this country anymore. You want to get your guys like Marvin Harrison out there, or Ibuka, and that type of the kind of athletes they have, Julian Fleming, give them the ball and see how far they can run. That's just the nature of football. That personality of running like it used to be doesn't exist in very many places anymore.
Well, this sent Ohio State fans into spasms of conniption that they ran a jet sweep on 4th and 1 and they didn't make it. And I know they were probably all over there at South Bend partying or arriving in South Bend, but Saturday in the Clemson-Florida State game, which is a game that is uber consequential to the ACC. It's an overtime game. It's at Clemson. It's 3rd and 1, and Clemson's got a physical running back in Will Shipley. They got to score because FSU has scored, and they throw a sideline pass to a wide receiver who gets tackled for a 1-yard loss, and they try the same thing on 4th down, and they didn't run it in that situation either. And guess what, fan with the tank top and laptop? Sometimes there's a reason why you run a jet sweep, because you got the defense outnumbered. And sometimes there's a reason why you throw it to the sideline instead of running it up the middle and trying to run it into a cement truck. And I know you well enough to know that if that had been sprung for a touchdown, it would have been the greatest call ever that you'd ever seen.
Yeah.
So I just find the whole sense of entitlement utterly revolting.
Well, I think the other thing is, too, every year, when you know that you have one of the top 5 recruiting classes every year, you're assuming that those kids and the way they played at high school is automatically going to osmosize into the way they're going to play at Ohio State against teams like Notre Dame and Southern Cal and Texas and Clemson and Georgia and Alabama. And we know. I mean, these are kids with red blood and the same issues physically and emotionally and mentally as everybody else. And it's not necessarily so because you're a 5-star in high school that you're going to perform like that at Ohio State. And conversely, you remember a guy named A.J. Hawk at Centerville was a 3-star at best. A lot of people said he can't play at Ohio State. Got a bad knee. He's too slow. He turned out to be an all-pro with the Packers for 10 years. So you can't just get in bed with recruiting and assume, as you say, that year after year after year we ought to be better than everybody else just because we have a top 3 or 4 recruiting class.
Yeah, and the other guy tries to. That's the other thing. The other guy's trying to. So, all right. Well, that's about all I have. Do you have any Reader Speaks comments you want to share? Nobody's made fun
we
of
got
me.
some really good Reader Speaks. I want to thank a gal up in the Cleveland area that wrote to us about Alumni Day 3 weeks ago when I was talking about the Ohio State Marching Band. We're going to publish her letter, her comments, at least some of them, and my response to this gal this week, later in the week, about the Ohio State Marching Band, which some of you don't know, or a lot of you probably don't know, that I actually at one time was a member of the Ohio State University Marching Band. At the same time, I played.
You were the wrong. You didn't play sousaphone. You played cornet.
I didn't play sousaphone. I was a trumpet player in a band, but I played 3 years while I played varsity baseball. And I finally, the baseball coach called me in one summer and he said, "Hey, if you don't come to fall practice this year, you're going to lose your scholarship. You got to make a choice. You want to play baseball or you're going to play in a marching band." And I chose baseball and I left the band in 1973. But I do have some experience in it, and it's good experience and a lot of fun. And it's a tremendous organization. Changed over the years. It's not exactly the same as it once was, but I respond to her comments and the letters and questions as to how the things I said about them on Alumni Day, and you're going to look to that. You're going to look forward to that if you're a band fan and you like the Reader Speaks. That's coming up here in a few days.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's been great to be on with you guys, and I will say, that I'm super excited to get back out and network with young people and network with coaches who are invested in the right things with young people. And I love my job with Press Pros, and I plan on doing it for a long, long time. And Sonny has been great to me in advance of this, certainly through this. He's a dear, dear friend. And I just can't, you don't expect to be lavished with prayers and support. And you kind of expect it, but you don't have a full appreciation for how good people are and how kind people are until you go through this sort of circumstance. I'm not going through anything that millions of other people haven't gone through, and I'm just looking forward to doing this battle the right way and being as inspiring as I can be and confident as I can be throughout it, and enjoying my life. And a big part of my life enjoyment is watching kids achieve at a high level after being put in situations where they're tested and where they are stressed and where they're shepherded and where they're coached. And I believe in the values of extracurricular sports. And I try to write about them in a way that makes sure that people don't miss that games are more than a result.
Well, to your point about the number of people who've reached out to you and me, while you've been away and while you were having the surgery and everything like that, those people who are believers know the term in the New Testament says we have a good hope. Well, sometimes that good hope walks around on this earth, and it surprises you by the number of people and their sentiments about people who really do need, somebody out there that you can reach out and touch to be out there pulling for you. And I certainly appreciate the number of people who wrote to me wanting information about Bruce, text, emails, calls, face to face. And so, it's you're reminded sometimes in those situations why it is so much fun to do Press Pros Magazine, because I know there's a lot of people who enjoy and look forward and anticipate reading every day and hearing us on Monday night. And thank you all for your caring and the questions and for hanging in there and the support you give us here every week. And with that, let's go watch the Bengals.
Let's go watch the Bengals. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.